Charles Soule moves his No Space storyline forward in a really big way this issue as the rebel heroes get to work on helping the people trapped in the void and get back to the universe at large. Soule used the issue to build out Blythe a little bit more, and while I'm still convinced he's a bit culty and doesn't really want to leave No Space since he's the leader there and he's got a good thing going for him and people respect him and everything, I like that he's willing to let the rebels give it a go and see if they can come up with a way to leave. I also like him and Leia having a conversation about what is happening out in the galaxy and him learning about the Empire and how people are fighting it, and maybe that might be the thing that spurs him to come out of his shell and leave No Space. So I guess we'll wait and see next issue, which is the final part of this story. Soule also teases us with a little bit more development between Lando and Holdo, whose relationship is quickly developing, as well as we see them both sort of share a nice moment when they try to start up a ship. And as we are quickly approaching Return of the Jedi territory, I hope that that story doesn't get thrown into the background with everything that's going to be happening through that film and through that series of events after what happens when the Empire gets taken down. Soule does indeed take the first big step towards Return of the Jedi this issue as well, with Luke losing his lightsaber, putting him on a path to having to build his own saber and find his own crystal and parts and everything, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing Charles get to tell that story. Mutabek Musabekov tags in as artist for this issue, and their work complements Andreas Janola's previous artwork really well, keeping the designs consistent, and much like how Soule has been tapping into pulpy sci-fi stuff through his script, I love that Mutabek gets to use that in their artwork this issue, specifically with the very 50s, 60s inspired spacesuits with the domed helmets and the bright colours, which look great in action. Star Wars issue 32 took some fun, big strides in the storyline while never forgetting to sprinkle in some smaller, unique character moments as we itch ever so closer to Return of the Jedi. I'm going to give this issue a 9 out of 10. Star Wars issue 32 finds Chewbacca screaming at the guards, who don't understand a word of the Shriwook. They unlock the cell and Chewie comes out quietly as the guards ask if Lobot can explain to them what the Wookiee is saying. Lobot unfortunately can't talk either, so one guard remembers seeing Chewie talking with one of the other people he came in with, wanting to take them to see him so he can understand him, warning the Wookiee that this better not be a trick since they are in no space and there's nowhere for him to flee. Chewie goes to see Lando, who thinks that he's breaking them out, but Chewie immediately recognizes the romantic vibes between Holdo and Lando. Lando tells the Wookiee that what they get up to in their own cell is not any of Chewie's business, asking why the Wookiee is there. The guards tell Lando that he was trying to tell them something, so Chewie frantically tells his friend about how he can get them all home. Lando goes to see Blythe, who isn't too pleased to be taken away from important colony business. Lando explains that Chewbacca has a way to get them all home, but Blythe isn't fazed, telling them that this happens all the time with new additions to the colony. They all think they have some way to escape, but they have tried it all and it doesn't work. Lando continues to try to explain, but the captain doesn't want to hear it, wanting them all back in their accommodation since hope is a dangerous belief in no space. Lando finally gets a chance to speak, explaining that Chewie is an extraordinarily gifted engineer and he promises the Abyssin that he will hear what he has to say. Lando goes on to explain that all of the ships need a path engine to travel in and out of no space, and they have a path engine on their ship. The rebels are taken to the ship's hangar, where Blythe says that if they have a path engine, they will have to get it themselves, since the Great Hall is swarming with droids that the Nihil left behind. Blythe lends them an old ship to get them there, telling them that it was damaged in a firefight with the Nihil and since then has been scavenged to keep other ships running, and then it was used to breed Void Roach until they died a few decades later. Lando, Lobot and Chewbacca get to work fixing up the ship as Blythe asks to speak with Leia alone. Blythe reveals that he knows Leia seems to be the leader of the little group, and therefore he wants her to tell him what is happening out in the galaxy, since the last new additions were 35 years ago. Leia explains that the Republic doesn't exist anymore and the Empire does, and the Jedi are all gone and Emperor Palpatine rules over everything and everyone. Blythe asks if anyone fights back, and Leia tells him that some do, as Lando tells Holdo that they fix the ship up as much as they can, equating it to one engine and a bubble of air for them to breathe. Lando hopes the engine won't blow up when he turns it on, so Holdo presses it with Lando, telling him they can do it for good luck. The engine starts without any problems as Blythe cannot believe they got the ship to start. Leia tells him to have a little hope, assuring the captain that they will return with the Path engine, since they have no desire to leave them all behind in no space. The heroes leave the ship, taking stock of what they have, finding that their weapons were given back and they have barely one engine in a barely moving ship that could fall apart at any time. Holdo reminds them that they also have a Jedi, but Luke tells her that his connection to the Force is strange in no space, finding it hard to tap into, but he'll do his best. Holdo is also glad to have Lobot there, since he can get into any high-level computer system, and they might need that in order to fight the killer droids. Lando knows that they will be fine as they arrive at the Great Hall, finding the droids have discovered the Path engine and have taken it for themselves. The team try and come up with a plan to distract the droids away from the engine so they can take it, and Luke volunteers, since he's got to go to the Skyfarer and retrieve his Jedi book anyway. Lando asks how he intends to get to the surface, since they can't land the ship as the droids would just tear them apart. Luke luckily had a chat with Forvan before he left and got some specialized gear. He dons a spacesuit and jetpack, blasting off from the ship and confronting the droids, drawing them away from the Path engine. Lando knows that the odds of them living are a little iffy, so he wants Holdo to know that it's been a pleasure as they leap from the ship and blast the droids. As the heroes blast away the droids, Chewie and Lobot pilot the ship towards the engine, and Chewie leaps down onto the rock to grab it, taking it and its power crystal as more droids appear. Luke force pushes the droids away from his friend, telling him he doesn't think he can do this again, wanting Chewbacca to run back to the ship now. Luke tells Holdo to keep the droids away from the ship and Chewie as he's going for his book. Holdo reminds him the lightsaber can't cut through their armor and it's just a silly book he wants. Luke doesn't think it's just some book, and he really wasn't properly focused before, but now the Force is with him. Luke cuts through several droids with no trouble, heading into the destroyed Skyfarer, where he spots his book out on the rock's ledge behind the ship. Before he can go and get it, a droid blasts his jetpack. He tries to use it, but it doesn't work properly as the droid stomps on the rock, causing the book to fall. Luke reaches out with the Force to try and grab it, but the droid grabs his arm, destroying his lightsaber in a flash of bright yellow light.